Okay, everyone, good morning. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing on February the 6th, Tuesday the 6th of February. Calling it February the 6th, Stevie, the wrong way around. Myself and Stevie Clifford here to look ahead to Rangers against Aberdeen. Look back a little bit at yesterday's press conference. We'll talk through predicted teams. What a win could mean for Rangers, who of course could go top of the table. Philippe Clement, although when he was asked about that yesterday, said there is zero talk of that within his squad. Before we start, a mention as ever for our sponsors, MPH Group. If you're looking for home improvements, these guys are the best to go to. All the relevant links are in the description. As you know, you can win a free holiday to Mexico out of it as well. So if you are thinking of doing some home improvements, Stevie, why not get yourself in with a chance of a fantastic 5-star holiday as well. But Stevie, firstly, how you doing and looking forward to what should be a big night tonight at Ibrox?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Joshua. It's going to be, it's a big night. It's already got that kind of tension around it. We need everything from everyone tonight. The supporters, the players. It feels like a European type night, and that's the type of atmosphere we need to recreate. So it's certainly a big opportunity. And see, at the end of the day, it's another home game where we need to go and try and influence and dominate and make sure we get the 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously not long since the last game, Stevie. Philippe Clement was doing his press conference yesterday. The main talking point from tonight is that if Rangers, I think they need to win by a 3-goal margin to go top, which would be quite a win. But the chance is there to go joint top. And as you know, myself and Chris spoke about this yesterday, Stevie, that's something that would have felt very far away for Rangers a mere matter of months ago. Neil Warnock is going to be in the away dugout, much to the dismay of Derek Clark, who will suddenly have split loyalties watching on from some sports bar in Norway, I'm sure. Clement has really maintained this, and sometimes we hear managers say this, Stevie, don't we, one game at a time, and it becomes cliche and it becomes a bit of a rhetoric. But since he's come in, he spoke about this being a marathon, not a sprint. It does feel like he's managed to change that mentality somehow. I think Chris asked him at the press conference yesterday, was that focus, that mentality here before he arrived? And he said he doesn't know, understandably, because he wasn't here. This is a big opportunity tonight, Stevie. We've seen in the past iterations of the squad maybe not quite take that opportunity when, say, Celtic have dropped points at the weekend. I know Rangers went and beat Livingston quite convincingly, but it was as one-sided a game as they come, especially in the Scottish Premiership. Tonight will be more of a task, though. Rangers haven't beaten Aberdeen in the league this season. Neil Warnock is in there, which just adds an extra element to it. New manager bounds to throw another cliche at you as well. So it's going to be a difficult tie, isn't it? I know we'll get through our predicted teams at the moment, but equally, if Rangers have, there's a lot of potential here for Rangers at the moment. There's a lot of momentum that they can really push in their favour, and winning home games is a non-negotiable. I know when you look at the reverse tie up at Aberdeen, you were frustrated at the manner in which they dropped points, and an opportunity to, I guess, start rectifying that with 3 points tonight.
Yeah, a couple of points in there. I think the biggest one is that having got close to being able to draw level at the top, you don't want to throw it away this early, because it hands the momentum back to our nearest challengers, who will then rightly probably think that they don't have the capability in that squad to really push us and really get close to us, because every time they get an opportunity, they give it away. The second thing with that is this squad, in terms of these opportunities, I happen to think that this squad's really different. And when you think about the players involved, and you go through our teams, Joshua, which we can kind of come to,
Yeah,
you've still got Tavernier, Goldson, you've still got John Lundstrom, but I think that's a much changed 11 compared with maybe previous players that have said that they don't take their opportunities. So I think that's different, and I'm not too concerned about that being an issue with them. As for tonight and it being a difficult game, Aberdeen could be in the third division and they would still turn up to play Rangers like it was a World Cup final. So We expect that from them. The new manager Bounds, having Neil Warnock there, it doesn't make it any more difficult because it was always going to be a difficult game against Aberdeen anyway. Having studied both the games previously, the home defeat, Michael Beale's last game, we had 4 excellent opportunities before we actually went behind. Cyril Dessers had 2 headers, 2 really good headers. Seema had a chance, which he missed. So these were clear opportunities as well. And then Aberdeen go forward from a corner and get one goal. And that was us always chasing our tail at that point. At Pataudry, we had numerous opportunities. Apart from the first 10 minutes where we started slowly, didn't heed the warning when Majowski went through. He then subsequently went through a couple of minutes later and scored. We were well in control of that game, pointing to Balogun had a really good chance at the back post, a header which he should have taken. And then we had opportunities. I think I'm right in thinking Seema had an opportunity around about 50 minutes as well. And then that last kind of 30 minutes, it was all Rangers like dominating completely. So I think that Aberdeen are a good side. They'll come in, be well organised. They've got more to them than Livingston with regards to sitting in and being able to spring. You've seen Majowski scoring a really lovely goal at the weekend where, you know, there's nothing. That's a ball down the line and he's taken it in and managed to turn the defender and then plant a lovely shot into the corner. So they are a dangerous side in that regard to having more up top. But it's a home game for Rangers, which we need to go and really influence and stamp our authority onto games. And I think we've done that really well recently, Joshua, in games where we've needed to turn up. And this squad had questions over it after Parkhead. Could they respond? They beat a strong Kilmarnock team at Ibrox, played quite well, went to Easter Road, been to St Mirren, taking care of Livingston. So I think they've answered that. And tonight's just another little question, another little hurdle. And the more they pass these little hurdles, Joshua, the more the momentum, the more the feel-good factor will come up. I'm like you, I'm not so concerned in terms of winning 3-4-0 and going top of the league. That would be fantastic. The priority remains 3 points. Keep getting 3 points. Keep putting pressure on. And the way the goal difference is working, Rangers are by default clawing that back naturally anyway. So I don't think you need to set up to go and win 5-0. You just need to set up to go and win the game and see what else happens. I don't think there's any pressure on us to go and score multiple goals. It would be nice if we could. But my priority remains winning, because I think winning and the pressure that's bringing and the momentum that's bringing, the feel-good factor within the club, within the players, within the fan base, I think that was telling on Saturday. I think the more you win games like tonight, the more that will keep building, regardless of whether or not, you know, if Rangers win 2-0 tonight, nobody's going to go away from the game thinking, well, that was an opportunity blown. That's not what it's like at the moment. So everybody's thinking, great, another 3 points. Now let's see what they're going to do. Can they handle it, kind of thing. So I think the feeling has completely changed. And I think when it comes to tonight, everybody's just thinking, go and put in a strong performance and win the game, and the rest is just a bonus.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Stevie. Obviously, the narrative of being able to go top of the league is always appealing for those of us in the media. But I think you're spot on. Clermont will, within the dressing room, I'd imagine that the message will be very much continually one game at a time and not caring at all where they are at the moment, as long as they're closer within touching distance. As he said the other day, it only matters where they are come May. And Clermont is one of these managers, Stevie. I think that when he says he doesn't care about the league table at the moment, you believe him, because I think he carries quite a consistent message. Let's get to some comments and we'll speak through our team. Alan says, this feels like a massive game tonight. Big win is a massive statement. James with the realistic expectation of 3 points and 6 goals. James saying the manager is keeping Rangers' feet on the ground, which is vital going forward. Craig says he's expecting a tough game tonight. This team, I presume Aberdeen means, always gives us problems, but Rangers can win if they take their chances. And CGM55 says, I've given up trying to predict what team Clermont will pick. Well, Stevie and I are going to give it our best shot. I mean, the thing is, Stevie, Clermont has spoken repeatedly about trying to start his rotation early. I think we saw that the game against St Mirren and the game against Livingston, where he hadn't really picked his strongest team, despite the fact that he wasn't coming off a heavy run of fixtures, but he explained the way that he's trying to work the squad, to get everyone back to full fitness, to build up match minutes for those players who have been injured, is by giving them game time, because you'll need them over the duration of this run of fixtures over the next 6 weeks or so. We've gone for the same team, great minds and all that. Let's go through position by position. We'll talk through some of the big talking points. I see Chris here saying, directing one at you, Stevie, who starts up top tonight, Dessers or Silva. We'll get to the top end of the pitch because I think that's an interesting talking point. The back four, Stevie. Let's start with Leon Balogun's injury. News emerged from yesterday's press conference. He might need surgery. He was seeing a specialist yesterday afternoon for what it could be something broken in his face, which might be. It looked like a cheekbone. It did not look comfortable with whatever it was. The positive, Stevie, is that John Souttar looks to have played himself back into a bit of form. Certainly the best couple of performances, I think, in a row at Hibs and away at with St Mirren as well. I think those were his best two performances under Clement. So he'll come back in, you'd imagine, next to Connor Goldson. But Rangers suddenly might be a little bit light in that position if Leon Balogun does require surgery. Do you fully expect it to be Souttar and Ridvan coming in for Barisic and Balogun tonight?
Yeah, I would think so. A couple of things on that, on John Souttar's form. I would agree with you. I think John Souttar defensively has been very good when it comes to being on the deck. I'm slightly concerned about John Souttar in the air, as ridiculous as that may sound. He was beaten in that Copenhagen friendly in the air with a header would expect him to make. And then at St Mirren, he had a cross which he headed out to the edge of the box, which the boy Kwon, who's on loan from Celtic, had fired over. And it was a defensive header where he should have put it back across where it came from, but he put it out. And that concerns me slightly. I think Balogun, to me, is better in the air than John Souttar. But I think defensively, last-ditch blocks, Souttar had a great block against Gogic at St Mirren. He had a great block at Easter Road where he blocked it with his chest. I think it was actually after Wade came really close. Dessers had went one-on-one, actually. That's what it was. Hit the goalkeeper, and then they broke away. And John Souttar done a magnificent block. So I think that John has come onto form. I would agree with that. So he comes in. Ben Davies is obviously, I'm not sure where Ben Davies is at the moment, injury-wise. And Ridvan, for me, has been the star man at left back.
Yeah.
In the last 6 weeks, I think he's been very, very good. I actually want to see more of Ridvan Yilmaz. That's how impressed I've been with him. I think he has done extremely well with his performances. And I think he adds something different when he's bombing up that left-hand side. So, yeah, I'm quite happy with that as a back four. Obviously, Jack picks himself. Some nice comments from him yesterday as well in the media or this morning in the media. I think he was on TalkSport, wasn't he? So he's kind of spoken really well about that. So, obviously, loving his time up here, and that's what you love to hear. So, yeah, I think that back five pretty much picks itself.
Let's talk about the midfield because a lot of people, let me get a few of these comments. James saying time for Raskin to step up. His form has been way off. Denzel saying, I agree, I'd have Sterling in this side. He has pace, dig, and he's talented too. Let me put my point across and then you can put yours across, Stevie. I agree that Dujon Sterling should play in most Rangers teams at the moment. I think what you've seen is Rangers have been trying to find different positions for him in different games as well. He's a player who, because he's got a lot of translatable qualities, he can carry the ball, he's strong, he's technically really gifted. He can play in a lot of different positions. We saw him in a left wing position to try and run behind against against St Mirren away, which is obviously where Desser's goal would come from, that similar move. We've seen him in the centre of midfield, obviously, and that's kind of where he's made his name under Clement. I think there's still a question mark, Stevie, if you have Lundstrom and Sterling in a game where you're trying to open up an opposition and there's not space behind the defence. Does that give you enough creativity in the middle of the pitch? And Nico Raskin is someone who I think can offer more in that regard. He's more of a natural number six in a team that has a lot of possession. If you look at the games where Sterling has played in the middle, more often than not, it's been in games maybe away from home or the Old Firm or the cup final where it's a bit more end to end. I think it's a different task. I think Rangers need more of an out-and-out number 6 in these types of games. And I know normally it's Lundstram playing at the base of midfield, but I think long-term you want Raskin in there with him as well. So I agree with the point. Obviously, Sterling was out injured at the weekend as well, Stevie, so I wasn't expecting him to start tonight. There wasn't an update given, I don't believe, by Clement at yesterday's press conference. So I agree with the comments. I think more often than not, you have Dujon Sterling in your team somewhere. As we keep coming back to, it's maybe a question of where he plays, but not if he plays. Nico Raskin has not been in good form. I think he's been coming back from injury, and that's probably been a little bit forgotten. He's probably suffering a little bit from what I think Todd Cantwell has, Stevie, which is that both of those players came in, performed well for different reasons, and I think a lot of that was about the collective picture. Obviously, at the start of the season, injury issues. I don't think either were helped by the amount of positions they had to play at the start of the season. Raskin hasn't been able to kick on. We've started to see Cantwell, I think, do that even just in the last 4 games. We can obviously speak a little bit about his number 10 comments as well. But I still think that long-term Raskin's going to be a really good player for Rangers. I agree that he's not been in good form and he probably needs a couple of performances, like any player does at a big club like Rangers, to just remind supporters of what he's about and why he should be in that team. But I still think that long-term, he's going to be, certainly over the remainder of the season, someone who's a regular fixture in that midfield for Rangers. I mean, do you agree with either of those points, Stevie, about Sterling in games of this nature? And how do you see the Nico Raskin debate? Because I think it's fair to say he is in that position at the moment where you've come to a big club like Rangers, you have to prove yourself initially. You do that, but then the next step is doing it again and again and again and consistently. An injury and form coming back from injury probably haven't helped that over the last couple of months for Nico Raskin.
First of all, I would say that on the Sterling debate, I was the same as you. We actually, when you asked for my team, I actually said about Dujon Sterling in midfield, but we weren't sure of where he is and if he's available. Obviously, Clement said he had a wee injury, but then we didn't find out yesterday. There wasn't a kind of follow-up question. I wasn't present there to ask it either. So for me, I think that Nico Raskin is a bit misunderstood, actually, the way that we play him and the way that he plays in our midfield. And our good friend Adam Thornton actually produced his radar a couple of weeks on social media, which stirred up a bit of debate because it actually was pretty impressive with regards to what he actually does in midfield. And I think the difference between Nico Raskin is that, and somebody, and he was getting a lot of comparisons at that point with Matt O'Reilly, who obviously plays for Celtic. Now, O'Reilly scores a lot of goals, a lot of big goals, and he's really impressive going forward. But Raskin's radar was much bigger, analysis-wise, than his, because he does a different type of job. And it's a different type of job that we maybe don't realise and see. His game is all about pressuring. It's all about winning tackles. It's all about winning 50-50s. Now, people have said to me, oh, he's really poor on the ball and things. And I get that. And I get he does give the ball away. But Nico Raskin also tries to play through the lines quite a lot. Now, it was a pass that seen Ryan Jack give Todd Cantwell on Saturday, which I think worked brilliantly. Cantwell fed it to McCausland. McCausland cut it back and Cantwell scored. But it was that pass in between the lines where Cantwell finds that bit of space. Nico Raskin constantly tries to make passes like that.
Agreed.
And I think that's where he's different from John Lundstram, in a sense, where John Lundstram's job is more about recycling the ball quickly, winning the ball and popping it off. He doesn't really play in between the lines. He often shifts it side to side. Now, that's not a criticism. It's just a different role. Raskin's role is to be a wee bit more progressive on the ball. So it's not that I disagree that or I'm saying he's been wonderful. I just think he's maybe a different type of player that sometimes your eyes don't realise is actually there doing his thing, because it's a different role and a different kind of perspective around that. So that's the only thing I would say about Nico Raskin. I think that he's somebody that we need to get playing regular 9 out of 10 so that we can flip him for a lot of money and sell him on. Now, that you may think, like, why is he saying that? But ultimately, that's where we need to be. Raskin was an investment.
Yeah. Of course.
So I think that if he starts tonight, I would be interested to say to people to watch how he actually plays and see how he plays is a lot different, because Nico Raskin doesn't get 5, 6, 7, 8 goals from a midfield position. We're maybe not judging him on what the role is he actually does. So it'll be interesting. I know you're one for your stats, and like Adam, you like to analyse things and stuff like that. It'd be interesting if you looked at that radar as well, Joshua, and kind of seen that point on him.
Yeah, I agree with your point that when someone has not played and then not played well for, like, Raskin has not had a good run of form probably this season, has he? Notable games that stand out where he was good was away in Servette, but I can't think of a run of form this season where he's been good. So I agree with that sentiment, but I disagree with the sentiment that he's not showed good form or showed what he's about at all since he came to the club. I thought he had a lot of good performances last season. The task is, as you mentioned, continuing that on. I did an interview with his manager at Standard Liège around the time he joined, well, just around this time last year, Stevie, and he had some really interesting comments. He said, look, he's someone who, if he plays in a double pivot, he probably is the one who needs to play higher. He's someone who doesn't operate well when things are static. One of his real strengths is winning the ball back, but he's a ball carrier as well. But I think the maturity that probably needs to come in his game, and a game that sticks out in my mind, Stevie, was I think he started as a number 6 against Livingston at home, funnily enough, in August when Rangers won 4-0. And remember that spell, it got a bit nervy from 60 to 70 minutes when it was still only 1-0. I think Matondo and Sima came off the bench and Dowell scored that goal, and eventually it was 4-0 Rangers. But that was the type of game where he was taking risks at the wrong time. And I guess that's it's a difficult balance. It's a difficult balance overall when you're trying to break teams down. To take the game against Livingston at the weekend, you need to take risks at moments like Matondo did with that shot. But then you also need to retain the ball in the right moments, because if you take that shot every time you get into the final third, more often than not, it's going to go over the bar. More often than not, it relieves pressure and it allows Livingston to get up the pitch. So I think Raskin hopefully will benefit from playing under one manager for a concerted period of time. Totally agree with you that the ambition with these types of players has to be get them in for a couple of years, get them playing well and sell them on for a bigger profit. I don't think he's been in good form, but I think he will be. I think he will be a really important player for Rangers in that position, and he's got a lot of attributes you want in a midfielder, because he can play out under pressure, and that's something that I think Rangers lack otherwise. Someone who can take the ball with their back to goal, Stevie, and twist their way out of issues. And what Raskin also has as a benefit is he can pass or carry, which I think is something that, again, the Rangers midfield lacks, and hopefully Mohamed Diomande will supplement as well. So I agree that he's been out of form. I agree that maybe sometimes a little bit misunderstood, but then also I think to the other point, he needs to start performing now. I know I'm giving him the caveat of being back from injury, but that obviously was a while ago. There's no excuse for that tonight, probably, for example, because he has played a decent amount of minutes and hasn't been injured in a little while. So let's see who starts in there. It's going to be interesting. And moving up into the 3 behind the striker, Stevie, I'd probably keep Matondo in because he scored, and I thought he actually had a decent game overall. I think we spoke about this after the game on Saturday, but I think the task for Matondo has been, okay, we've seen you can be really exciting in space at the start of the season, but how do you do that in a game against Livingston at home when there's absolutely no space? And while he did frustrate at points, I think criticism over his final ball is difficult, because when you're delivering into a box with 10 Livingston players, picking out a player is difficult. What he did that I liked, Stevie, was he hit the byline more. And I think Matondo, what he needed to do and has needed to do to mature his game, if you look at all the best wingers around the world, they do 2 things. Either normally they vary things up to try and protect, their real strength, which for him is obviously cutting inside and trying to deliver or find the far corner. But also they don't take on their man every single time they get the ball. Sometimes it's about putting it back and retaining it. And actually, if you look at what Rangers did for the goal really well, they moved it over side to side. They created the space for Matondo to score that goal. But also, if you look, and Chris and I spoke about this yesterday, if you look at the man behind the man who's marking Matondo, I can't remember whose names it was in the Livingston team sheet. He actually moves deeper because he presumes Matondo's going to hit the byline. The point being, while I don't think it was a perfect performance for him, I thought it was a step in the right direction against a team sitting in a low block. It's not to say he's definitely going to be the answer there, but he's going to have to be one of the answers for Rangers between now and the end of the season. And then Ross McCaw's on, Stevie. Seen some conversation about his numbers on social media yesterday. I think he clearly still has room to grow with his decision making, but it's easy to forget it was only 4 months ago that he'd never started a game for Rangers. He's been thrown in and suddenly had to become a first team player without really much option for rotation in there. So generally, I think he's done really well, as much as there's always going to be scope for improvement. Would you keep both those wingers in place? Would you be tempted to start Oscar Cortez, or do you think he'll start against Ayr at the weekend?
I'm definitely tempted to start Cortez for some reason, probably based on not a lot, and it's just the way I strangely work. I immediately like the look of Cortez, and I think that he might be quite decent. So the caveat to that is that I thought the first time that I saw Grezda, he might be quite decent on the wing as well. So I wouldn't listen to me at all, really. But there is an excitement, I suppose, around him and to play him on Matondo. I think you're right. That was a different type of finish for him at the weekend, which I don't think we've seen before. Which I liked, as you say, he's normally running onto a ball into space or behind, but this was one he kind of manufactured himself by going to go left, but cutting back in and then finishing, which I liked. Ross McCausland is a young guy. I think his numbers now, he's got 7 goal involvements, I think 4 assists, 3 goals. I think that's where it is.
Yeah.
And I would like to see, obviously, more numbers, but if that continues at that rate, you're going to get 15 goal involvements.
Yeah.
Because for a winger and a young man that maybe only plays the last 6 months of the season is pretty decent. So bear in mind, to keep that in mind while we're discussing them. So Cortez is going to come in and start, and he'll be a permanent fixture. But it's when he comes in. Would he come in tonight? I'm not so sure. Would he play 30 minutes? Yes, I think that's probably more likely. So I think, again, I agree with you. Would Silva maybe go left? I'm not sure you take Matondo out, the pace of Matondo out that team. Redvan inverted as well, helping him. But interesting comment you made there, and I made this point as well, about shifting and how we're moving the ball from side to side to try and get people one-on-ones. They're actually doing that really well. They've done it at Easter Road quite well to try and isolate Matondo. And Matondo, they actually worked it really well. I think you remember Silva's chance in 7-8 minutes where Matondo gets and cuts back. So he done that really well. And something else they've done as well, and I made this comment on Heart and Hand Pod last night with the boys, that James Tavernier is actually subtly switching positions with your midfielder that's inside, so that midfielder goes right to create that overlap, but he then goes central to create a shooting possibility. I don't know if you noticed that against Livingston. They actually worked it really well a couple of times where I think Tav hit one over and he hit one wide, or it was deflected wide for a corner. So they are actually, you can see what they're trying to do. This is about when we watch a Clermont team and you're trying to figure out what they're doing, and from a kind of supporter's view, I actually picked up on that, and I've been picking up on it in the last couple of games, that they're trying to isolate people in good positions like Tavernier, get him centrally so that he can pop off a shot. And it was see what you brought up a stat, and this was a really interesting point that Shona actually made to me. How many shots are we taking from the edge of the box now that are getting deflected wide for corners and different things? Because I seen that you put the XG of the corner was double at the weekend than it had been at any point. I think it was 0.82. Yeah. And I would be interested at how many shots are we now taking from the edge of the box and things that are getting into corner kick positions that are then leading to other things. And it was suggested that maybe we are shooting more often from the edge of the box. And Ryan Jack had one after a couple of minutes that kind of got pushed wide. And there was, I think, another couple of, John Lundstrom had an effort that was wide, Tavernier had effort, Silva had an effort as well. Are we shooting more from outside the box? It feels like maybe we are a wee bit.
I think it was. I wonder if it was more specific to because it was such a unique game with Livingston so deep that you're going to average out a number of shots from the edge of the box, especially. It's not as if Rangers are yet a specialist team against the low block against Clermont. I would always, there's such a low probability in these shots that you have to take them at the right moment, Stevie. But I agree, if you're getting someone like Tavernier into that position, and he's done it a lot more, playing with the natural winger, spoke about it when we interviewed him in La Manga, how that role has changed, how it gets him closer to goal. If you watch him now in any game, he's almost spending as much of his time inside the box as he is outside. And on the topic of corners, we actually had a piece going out, I think, today before the game, which looks at Rangers attacking corners. I don't think you'd look at them this year and think, oh yeah, they've been very good. attacking set pieces. Last season, I think you'd look at them and generally, especially after Beale came in, and say that was an area where they were quite strong. But actually, the underlying numbers are the exact same. They overperformed quite a lot last year and have underperformed quite a lot this year. So it's an interesting little stat based on the fact that when I looked at the expected goals from corners alone, which was 0.82, Stevie, and I think it was quite dependent on the Livingston keeper. But then I saw the average was 0.41, and I thought, actually, that's not bad from attacking set pieces and average. It's not. It could be higher. It's not the highest in the league, but I thought it would be much lower. But Rangers' goals per 90 from set pieces is half that, so they're underperforming it by quite a margin. So we'll have a little bit more about that on the website today. But I agree with your points. And just finally, as we close, Todd Cantwell, I think definitely continues in there. Would expect Tom Lawrence to come in at the weekend. Cantwell's in a good bit of form. I would keep Fabio Silva in there because I thought he was probably had a shout to be Rangers' best player at the weekend, Stevie. There's an argument this game might suit Dessers a little bit more. I think I'd just like to see a bit more of Silva and see how he does. Would you be tempted to I guess, allow him to keep the shirt because he's in form, or do you think Dessers might come back into from the start tonight?
Well, this is a strange one because I never thought I would have said this 3 months, but 3 months ago, I'd be tempted to play Cyril. I think he's in a great vein of form. I think that the type of game possibly you would maybe need a presence in that box. Fabio Silva I thought was really good at the weekend as well. Took his goal well, had another couple of opportunities. I think he had a bicycle kick, sort of scissor kick thing that was just close in the second half. He had that shot with the outside of his foot. He had another one just wide as well. So I was impressed with him. I thought he did well. Would he keep the shirt? It's interesting because if he starts tonight, it's maybe an indication of where Clement sees him in his kind of 11. If Dessers come back in, you completely understand it as well. But at least it's an option. The big man came on at the weekend and, kind of belted over a quite, I think it'd probably be quite high on the old XG charts. He kind of rattled one over and you had a silent kind of wee laugh to yourself thinking that's more like the Cyril we've come to love. But what I love about him is he's back wanting more, so he can certainly come on and influence the game if we needed a goal or we needed a second or a third goal. Hopefully that he would be able to come on. So the big man can still play a part. Whether he starts or not, I'm not too sure. As a comment before, Joshua, about trying to predict a Clement team, it's not really a Michael Beale team or even Gio to a certain extent. You kind of knew which way you were going to go, but Clement has rotated a wee bit. Will probably make changes again tonight, and it's interesting to see what he's going to go with.
Absolutely right. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. If you've not subscribed to the Rangers Review, you can do so by clicking the link in the description or join our members channel on YouTube as well. Get 3 to 5 extra videos a week breaking down the press conferences, other talking points, and bringing some stats to the table as well, and lots more. Until then, thanks very much to Stevie for joining me. We'll be back tonight live from Ibrox, so keep your eyes peeled for loads of coverage from Rangers versus Aberdeen. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining us and speak to you soon.